So F1 is back with the powers that be, choosing not to make us wait another month for the next race.
Lucky me!
Though not gonna lie, after the snooze fest that was Azerbaijan, the series could really use a chance to redeem itself.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
With round 5 taking place in the United States for the first time this year, as we headed to Miami, a race that last year was so dead that the weekend's most iconic moment came from a middle-aged man pretending to swim on some cardboard. Coming into the race, and as has been the case all year, it was Verstappen and Perez leading the championship, with Red Bull in command and laughing at the rest of the competition in the same way that the Premier League is laughing at Chelsea Football Club. At the other end of the standings, and just 2 drivers were still on 0 points, that's Logan Sargent and Nick de Vries, though it would help if either of them actually made the effort to finish a race. Hey guys, it's Taran and welcome to the On Track channel and to round 5 in Miami. Now, before getting into it, I just wanted to ask you guys for some help and your suggestions for any new content ideas. Currently, I run through the Honest Review and Race Rating series every race, but I do want to get doing some more general, whenever, wherever type of content, so let me know any suggestions you've got down below in the comments. And of course, if you do end up enjoying this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more content throughout the year. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into my honest review of Formula 1 and the 2023 Miami Grand Prix. Coming into the weekend, and EA Sports elected to reveal their F1 23 game to the world. I don't know why, if you ever played EA games, you know it's just the same as last year with some new stickers on it.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
But this year does have the Champions Edition featuring Max Verstappen on the cover. Fernando and Lewis going to be sat there fuming given their combined almost 5 times as many titles. Over at Red Bull, and before the weekend they showed off their special one-off livery. The rest of the grid can only be hoping for the same outcome as when Mercedes tried it back in 2019. So apparently the design was created by a fan as part of a competition. Yeah, not gonna lie, Red Bull out here so confident they'll destroy the competition that they're letting the fans design the car. Meanwhile, the Mercedes admin showed us what their car designers have been up to the past couple of seasons. Over in the paddock, and a number of teams and drivers have been paid a visit by Vin Diesel. Shame he didn't visit the Alfa Romeo garage. That team could really be using some of that Fast and Furious energy when it comes to their absolute Nissan Micra of a car. Honestly, at this point, a P45 probably has more pace than that Alfa. Talking of movies, and we had the news that as part of the filming for his latest creation, Brad Pitt would be hopping in a car at Silverstone. To be fair, we've seen worse rookie drivers. And finally, out on track, and after seeing cars struggle to overtake in Baku with a shortened DRS zone, F1 have elected to shorten not 1 but 2 zones in Miami, as it seems the quest for closer racing has lasted all of just 1 season. Into FP1, and clearly in the space of just 1 week, every driver had forgotten how to brake for a corner, with a lock-up every 10 seconds as the drivers got used to a newly resurfaced track for 2023. To be fair, they could have resurfaced it Lightning McQueen style and it still would have been better than the ice rink of last year. Though over at AlphaTauri, and Nick de Vries was showing us that for him it was at least still pretty slippery, as he spun going round turn 12 and only just managed to keep his AlphaTauri from hitting the barriers, which is still an improvement from last week. Over at McLaren, and in an attempt to gain some lap time, Oscar Piastri decided to just move the racing line through turn 14, which, while not the best show of driving, wasn't as bad as what Nico Hülkenberg could muster, as he did the thing that Haas drivers have done best since joining the sport, spinning and then crashing. Into FP2, and sticking with the theme of Haas drivers showing their lack of, well, driving, and it was Kevin Magnussen's turn, as the Dane spun his way through turn 13 and narrowly avoided the first barrier before hitting the second one. Mick Schumacher's watching on from the Mercedes garage wondering why Haas got rid of him if they were only ever going to copy his style this year. Sadly, with not too much else going on, we had the TV director deciding to show off Martin Brundle talking to some random marshals, Susan over here in the tractor just itching to get out on track in an attempt to set a competitive lap time. To be fair, that tractor is still probably quicker than the Alfa Romeos. But as the session went on, we did get to see some good laps from Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. That is until he went and stuck the car nose first into the barriers, which, while bringing despair for Ferrari and their fans, did allow tractor Susan to get her moment in the spotlight. That was until Dave swooped in ahead of her. Better luck next time, Susan. And hey, if you're really that desperate to get yourself out on track, just follow Nick de Vries round, I'm sure he'll stick it in the wall eventually. After Leclerc's Ferrari had been towed away, there was just a bit of time left in the session, with race control electing to send the cars out on circuit, having not repaired the barrier from Leclerc's crash.
But I cannot see, I'm legally blind.
I know it was only a couple of minutes, but still, not the best look. Into FP3 and lockup troubles continued, with Fernando Alonso electing to go deep at turn 17. Over at Alpine, and it was a different kind of trouble, as Esteban Ocon had to deal with the slow-moving Haas of Kevin Magnussen trundling along in the middle of the road. But he wasn't the only car dealing with someone else getting in the way, as over in the pit lane there was a little trouble too, with Piastri and Perez getting a bit close for comfort given the Red Bull mechanics just elected to release Checo into the McLaren's path. Though in fairness to them, they're so many million miles up the road on race day, they probably just forgot the McLaren team still existed. And finally, in the other McLaren, and Lando Norris was doing his best Charles Leclerc impression, getting a swap on in the first sector but managing to catch the slide unlike the Monegasque previously. Into qualifying then, and the early story was cars getting in the way of one another, such as Carlos Sainz pulling a Lance Stroll and forgetting that F1 cars do in fact have mirrors as he almost put Zhou Guanyu into the wall. Then we had Kevin Magnussen going slowly in front of Lewis Hamilton, though in this case I honestly think it may just have been Lewis trying to put his car into the wall so he didn't have to drive it any longer. And come the end of the session, it was easy to see why, as with zeros on the clock both Mercedes drivers were down in 19th and 20th place. I'm guessing the team would probably now be in favour of a reverse grid race.
Well. How the turntables...
Though at least with the final runs across the line, the pair were able to make it through into Q2, which was more than could be said for Lance Stroll, as Aston Martin tried their luck with just one set of tyres, but failed miserably. Well, Lance failed miserably. It seems the Canadian is intent on keeping the spirit of Nicholas Latifi on the F1 grid. Into Q2, and once again the Mercedes were at the bottom in the drop zone. I guess one plus for the team this weekend is their car performance does seem to be consistently trash, with only George Russell able to get into Q3, leaving Lewis Hamilton out in 13th place, having been out-qualified by a Williams. Just remember that if you said that literally just a couple of years ago, you'd have been diagnosed as clinically insane. On to the final pass of qualifying, and it was an early mistake from Max Verstappen as he wobbled his way through the first sector, meaning that after the first runs it was Sergio Perez sitting on provisional pole. And with pole merchant Leclerc locking up on his first run, the Ferrari man was nowhere when it came to the top times, but he was then first to head out for the final runs with a clear track in front of him. And in typical Leclerc style, he 360'd his Ferrari into the barriers at nearly exactly the same place as he had in practice.
One time is funny, two times it's fucking annoying, no?
Also proving that it's not just the Ferrari strategists that don't learn from their mistakes, but the drivers as well. This brought out the red flag and ended the session, leaving Checo on pole with Alonso and Sainz in second and third, along with an angry Max Verstappen stuck down in 9th place, having not completed a lap in Q3. So on to Sunday, and after watching Sir Jackie Stewart fend off security to get Martin Brundle an interview with Roger Federer, it was time for racing, with everyone at the front end of the grid getting away well and, more importantly, getting away cleanly. At the back of the grid, however, not the case, as after deciding he had grown out of his wall-hitting phase, Nick de Vries had turned to other drivers instead, as he hit the back of Lando Norris after locking up both front wheels into turn 1, thus sending the McLaren off track and to the back of the pack, along with sending himself to the back of the pack. Not gonna lie, surprised he wasn't already there after qualifying. Further up the order, and on lap 3, we had a nice battle involving Kevin Magnussen, Max Verstappen, and then Charles Leclerc, who I'm actually surprised managed to complete a lap without throwing his car into the barrier, with Max getting the best exit out of the final turn and passing both the Haas and the Ferrari down into turn 1, with Charles instantaneously becoming depressed as he realised that in the space of just 1 year, he's gone from fighting Max for wins to struggling to overtake a Haas car, with the Ferrari-powered pair continuing their fight and Leclerc getting ahead into turn 1 only to get repassed by Magnussen straight away. Meanwhile, Verstappen's charge up the field continued. The next car for him to pass was George Russell, with the entire F1 fanbase hoping for fireworks after the previous little spat between the two in Baku. And with the Dutchman close on the back straight, would it be an aggressive defence from Russell? No. Max was swiftly up the inside, given that defending against Red Bull this season is about as useless as a Boston Bruins 3-1 series lead. If you're a hockey fan like me, well, I hope that one made you smile. And in the case of Max Verstappen, he was probably still smiling, given a couple of laps later he was making his way past Carlos Sainz for third with Alonso up ahead, with Fernando being passed in the same place as Carlos, putting Verstappen up to second place on lap 14. Elsewhere, and if you weren't called Max Verstappen, then you were probably stuck in a train behind Valtteri Bottas, the Finn doing his best to impersonate a slug as he held up the entire back half of the grid. Except maybe for Logan Sargent, that kid was somehow in a league of his own in this one, but not in a good way. Over at Ferrari, and with Verstappen pulling away, the battle was between Sainz and Alonso for third, with Ferrari amazingly managing to get it right with the strategy and getting him out just ahead of a big old train of cars. Just a shame Carlos couldn't get it right as he locked up on entry to the pit lane, getting himself a 5-second penalty in the process. Not that it mattered too much, as Alonso made quick work of overtaking the Ferrari for that net third place. Up in the lead, and after being in P1 since the start, it was time for Checo to change tyres, pitting from the lead, meaning that Verstappen had now made his way from 9th place up to 1st. Back down the order, and after 15 laps or so of tyre management and just general racing, it was time for Leclerc versus Magnussen round 3. With Leclerc getting by into turn 17 before Magnussen got the DRS and was switching places once again, meaning Leclerc had gone 3 for 3 when it came to passing the Haas driver and then instantly being repassed. And so on the next lap he was finally able to make it stick down into turn 1. Sadly for his teammate Sainz, making his P4 stick was proving a little difficult, as the Mercedes of George Russell got by with the help of DRS, relegating Carlos into 5th. And over in the other Mercedes, and Lewis Hamilton on the fresh mediums was finally making progress, as he got by Valtteri Bottas with a nice switchback at turn 17, finishing off the move on the main straight. Not gonna lie, I'm surprised Lewis knows how to overtake Valtteri, given he's used to him basically moving aside for the past 5 years. But for Lewis, he wasn't done there, as next up the road was Gasly and then Leclerc, with the Brit electing to squeeze his car up the inside of Leclerc's Ferrari and making the move stick for P6. Back up to the front though, and in the battle for the win, it was time for Verstappen's pit stop, with Max emerging just under 2 seconds behind Checo with the win in his sights. Would it be a great battle for the lead, for first place in the championship? Well, it wasn't the worst, as Perez defended the inside into the final turn and held on to P1 with Verstappen's first challenge. But that only lasted for one more straight, as Max came alongside and then round the outside of Checo at turn 1 to take the lead of the race. And finally, to round out the day's overtaking, it was Lance Stroll back in his correct position, with the Williams cars that is, as he got by Albon into turn 1, which elevated him from his starting spot of 17th all the way up to 13th, with the move greatly enjoyed by teammate Alonso as he radioed the team to let him know that he'd seen it on the big screen, probably chuckling to himself as well he was given a whole 10 places ahead of his teammate, with only Perez and Verstappen ahead of him on steps number 2 and number 1 on the podium, the trio cementing their new boy band that replaces the old Hambot Ver with the new style of Ver per Allo. Anyways, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed, do make sure to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. But until next time, take care.